Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat, in which we'll keep working in the subsequent event period. The subsequent event periods is the period from the balance sheet statement date until the financial statements are issued. Assuming a calendar year, December 31st financial statements, from January 1st till December 31st, the auditor will perform the interim testing, test of control, substantive testing, field work, test of detailed balances. Then the December 31st is the financial statement date. Now we don't release the financial statements December 31st. There's a period from that date until the financial statements are issued. This is the subsequent event period. In this period, we collect information about the final disclosure and presentation, about any contingent liabilities, including the client's attorney letters. We review subsequent events. How do we do so? Including dual dating for any specific transaction. We would perform analytical procedures, we evaluate the going concern, and we did all of this so far. And also part of this process is to obtain a management representation letter. So in this series of recording, we're up to obtaining a management representation letter. Remember, these steps are performed after testing is complete and the proposed adjustments are known. So basically, we're looking at the final figures, final numbers. Now in the next session, we would look at the supplementary information and other information. We cover those in a separate recording together. In this session, we'll focus specifically on the management representation letter. We have attorney's letter, we have representation letter. So let's make sure we understand which is which. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com. Most students and CPA candidates struggle not because audit is too hard, but because it's taught fast and the logic behind the procedure isn't explained clearly. Then everything feels disconnected. At Farhat Lectures, we break audit down step by step. We explain the why behind the standards, the logic behind the assertions, risks, procedures, evidence, so the whole process finally clicks. When the concepts connect, audit becomes clear and manageable. You stop memorizing and start understanding. Ready for auditing to make sense? Start your free trial at farhatlectures.com. The first thing is why the letter is required. So hold on a second. Once you hear the word required in auditing, it means it's mandatory. You have to get this letter, otherwise you might have to modify your opinion. So the word required is a must. Auditing standard require a written representation from management near the end of the audit. This letter does what? It confirms the truthfulness of management oral statements. So sometime you might ask questions throughout the audit and the questions might be answered orally. At this point, you're done with the audit. Just make sure you have everything down in writing and you would say, you told us this, confirm it, that you told us this. Because you could always deny that you told us this, but once it's in that letter, then you cannot deny it. You would document management responsibility for the financial statements. Basically, who's responsible for the financial statements? Management. Who's responsible for the internal control? Management. Who designs the internal control? Management. Who's responsible for accounting policies? Management. Put it down in the letter. Provides written evidence that complement other audit procedures. So whatever we needed for the other audit procedures, you provide it to us. If management, notice here, refuses to sign this letter, in other words, it's required and they refuse to sign it, the auditor usually cannot issue a clean opinion. An unmodified or unqualified may have to disclaim an opinion because I just cannot finish my work if I don't have that letter. So what are some basic features of the letter? The letter is typically printed on the client's letterhead. So the client, they write the letter on their own company's letterhead. Why? Because it's coming from the company. It's addressed to the auditor, to the auditor, but it's written and signed by either a CEO or the CFO or both. And it's dated on or near end the date of the auditor's report. Remember, the auditor's report is after year end, after the financial statements. In practice, what would happen is the auditor often write them on the company's overhead letter, but management must review, say, I agree, basically by signing. Usually the auditor will tell them what I want you to know.
Just make sure, because the auditor wants to cover their bases. So what are some key purposes of this letter? We kind of define them briefly. Let's go a little bit more in depth. Who's responsible for the financial statements? Management. Management is responsible for the fair presentation of the financial statements. Who chooses the accounting policies? The letter will spell out management chooses the accounting policy. Who design and maintain the internal control? Management. So if the company later claimed it did not understand it was responsible for the inventory valuation, yes, it was. The signed letter would contradict that claim. Another purpose for it is to help management remember items to disclose. Why? Because you want to make sure they told you everything. Completeness here. The wording in this letter would often refer to all the pledged assets were disclosed. Any guarantees that we did is disclosed. We disclose all contingent liabilities. Anything about related party transaction. So this letter can jog management memory. That's the whole purpose of it, to kind of look. This is the things that we are concerned about. Did you tell us everything about this? So while reviewing the draft letter, the CFO would recall that the company guaranteed a subsidiary bank loan. Like, hold on a second, let's talk about this. Maybe we overlooked this. Or the guarantee has not been disclosed, now we need to disclose it. So the CFO tells the auditor, and the disclosure is simply added. So that's part of the letter. This is what we want to make sure we went over. That we went over all of this. Now the CFO, before they sign it, they want to make sure that they told them everything, because if they missed something, it's the CFO and the CEO and the management responsibility. So simply put, you are putting not the blame, you are putting the responsibility on the management. Therefore, they want to be careful before they sign this letter that they disclose everything that they need to disclose to you. And what do they need to disclose to you? They told you what they need to. This list is not complete, but those are some important event and transaction. Another key purpose is document management response. The letter often sums up what management has told the auditor throughout the audit. For example, all litigation has been disclosed. It's in writing now. So because years later, an investor might sue the auditor claiming that they helped hid a litigation. You see, I did not hide any litigation. As far as I know, management told me about all the litigation. And here's the letter. The auditor can show that management signed a rep letter that all litigation was disclosed. The key categories covered in this letter: completeness of information. You just have to make sure all records and minutes were provided. You have to tell the auditor in that letter that we provided you everything. No unrecorded transaction. All the transactions are recorded, so we did not hit any transaction. So if anything that if they hide down the road we were not aware of, they're like, you told us you did not do it. Now you showed us that there was some hidden transaction. All uncorrected misstatements are immaterial. So they're telling us if they did not fix any statement, it's uncorrected. All fraud known to management is disclosed. That's important. All fraud known to management. And you're saying, look, tell me everything you need to know about fraud. They might say, we're not aware of any fraud, but later on, if we can see evidence that they were aware of a fraud going on, it's the management responsibility. Related party transactions are fully disclosed. Any contingent liabilities, including unasserted claim, are disclosed. Any subsequent events, significant events after year end, have been disclosed. That's why we want this letter toward the date of the audit report. Any major customer bankruptcy, acquisition, litigation settlement, anything like this you made us aware of before we issue the financial statements. For public companies, the letter will also usually include a representation for what? Internal control over financial reporting, because you're supposed to report on that as well. Basically the same thing, but related to same disclosure, completeness, truthfulness, but it's about internal control over financial reporting. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. Management refuses to include a statement in the rep letter asserting that all financial records were made available. They said, we cannot sign that. The auditor has otherwise obtained sufficient evidence, but the auditor says, I have the sufficient evidence. What should the auditor do? Now, What you can do is, if you don't know what the representation letter is, you could always ask AI to explain this topic real quick before you answer the question. Otherwise, try to answer the question. Here I'm trying to confuse you here. I'm telling you the auditor obtained sufficient evidence, and you might look at sufficient evidence and you might say, that's good enough for me. I can issue an unmodified opinion. You can't. Although you think you obtained sufficient evidence, the management representation letter, the representation letter is a must. It's required. Therefore, the first easy question we could eliminate is A. We cannot issue an unqualified, unmodified, clean opinion. B. Issued a qualified opinion. Qualified opinion deals with accounting, with GAAP issues. The representation letter is a scope limitation. Therefore, it doesn't work here. So B is out because it deals with something else. And you need to know what qualified opinion is. C. Withdraw from the engagement or disclaim an opinion. Would you do that? Yes. So if you cannot get a rep letter, it's a scope limitation. You disclaim or you withdraw. You say, that's it. I can't issue an opinion. It could be, everything could be good, but I can't issue an opinion because I cannot obtain something that I must. It's required by the auditing standard for me to obtain. Therefore, between A, B, and C, I'm going to keep C. Issue an adverse opinion. That's too extreme. You cannot issue an adverse opinion because adverse opinion usually applies to GAAP departure, not evidence. This is like the rep letter is a form of evidence. An adverse opinion, basically you're saying something wrong. You don't know whether something is wrong or not. You just don't want to refuse to include a statement that all the financial records were made available. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with GAAP. You cannot make that conclusion. So issue an adverse opinion is a GAAP issue anyway. So therefore, C is the best answer choice. Now, if you don't like the explanation, you could ask the AI immediately to explain the correct and incorrect answer. If you like the question, you could ask AI to create a similar MCQ for you. What should you do? Whether you are an accounting student or a CPA exam candidate, invest in yourself. How so? Go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional lectures, resources, podcast lessons, AI tools, video MCQs, video simulations to help you prepare. The best investment you can make is invest in yourself. Good luck, stay safe, and God bless.